Years ago, I was on a cross country trip, solo, to a family reunion. I was supposed to make it to a friend's house, but there was horrible weather. It was slow moving. Then, a terrible accident happened just ahead of me, and I was stuck for quite a while. All told, I was 5 hours behind schedule. I was exhausted, in need of a bathroom and a shower, so I pulled into a little strip mall off of a fairly back road, state road. It was obviously small and dirty, but would work in a pinch. There was a window to the outside where check-in was. The guy there eyed me up. Then a college-age girl asked me if I was traveling alone. I went to hand him my ID and credit card, but he insisted cash only. Red flags were going off at this point, but I scrounged together just enough cash, and he tossed me the key. The room was dirty, barely bigger than the bed. The first thing I did was go into the bathroom. Then I flipped up the mattress. Dirty, signs of bed bugs. A moment later, I spied a cockroach. That was it. I was out. I decided I would use the parking space at least, and sleep in the back trunk hatch of my SUV. I curled up, using a suitcase for a pillow and random clothes for a blanket, and fell asleep for an hour. I woke up aware of someone talking on the phone outside and glanced out to see the guy from check-in standing outside. It was now around 3 a.m. He finished up his call, then walked quietly over to my room, unlocked the door, and walked in. The lights didn't turn on, and a minute or two later, he came back out, slamming the door behind him and cursing with another guy. I hadn't seen Guy 2 enter, so I still don't know where he came from. They angrily talked for a moment, then checking Guy walked over to my SUV. I covered up my head quickly with a shirt. After he tried the locked door, he peered into the back seat, but between my tinted windows and blending into the general mess, he didn't notice me in the hatch. The two guys walked away to the far side of the lot, talking more. The one gestured across the street, where a diner was. While they were distracted, I climbed up to the front seat and started up the SUV. They turned around in surprise as I pulled away. I called my friends back home and told them, but didn't want to worry my family, so I said nothing to them. When I got back home, some 3 weeks later, we figured out the name of the hotel thanks to Google Maps and called the local police. They told me the place had closed down only days before I called. When I was a teenager, I was goth. Black hair, black clothes, black makeup, even had a pair of combat boots. My friends and I, in typical goth fashion, hung out at the local cemetery. We started going as a joke, but soon discovered we liked the peace we found there. That all changed one night. My friend called to see if I wanted to hang out, and I did. None of our other friends were available. They were either working or recovering from partying the night before, so we went on our own. My friend picked me up and we drove up to the cemetery. We were hanging out, smoking cigarettes, and BSing about the latest issue she was having with her boyfriend when we noticed, at the top of the hill we were on, about 100 feet away, a bonfire had been lit. You have to understand that this cemetery is about a block off campus of a major university, and it's not uncommon for college students to go up there to party. My friend and I sighed, knowing that we were going to have to leave soon. It was illegal to be in the cemetery after dark, and we knew the police would show up because some jerks had decided they needed a bonfire. We decided to finish our cigarettes, then take off. Just then, the most horrible stench came wafting down the hill from the direction of the bonfire. My friend gagged and covered her mouth. I groaned and said, "What the hell?" My friend shook her head, saying, "I don't know what they're doing. Let's just leave." We get in the car, and one of us suggests, I honestly don't remember who, maybe we should just go up and see what they're doing. My stomach turned and a cold shiver went through my body. My friend must have had the same feeling, because at the same time, we both said, "No, we should leave." My friend turned the car on, switched on her headlights, put the car in reverse, and looked over her shoulder before starting to back up. I was still looking at the hill. A figure stepped in front of the bonfire. I could only see a silhouette, but I was sure whoever it was watching us. A feeling of terror hit me, and I said, "Go, go, go, go," getting louder and more panicked with each word. My friend looked back up the hill for just a second, and just as the figure took a step towards us, she slammed on the gas and peeled out, going down in reverse. She slammed the gear shifter into drive, and we were out. We didn't say anything for a while, until she said, "What the hell were they burning?" I shook my head. "I don't know." She dropped me off at home, and I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up and went out to my kitchen. My mom was there drinking her morning coffee, and I joined her. We talked about her job for a bit when she suddenly comes out with, "Did you hear what happened last night?" I shrugged and said no. I had just gotten up. She tells me that a woman she worked with was kidnapped from the parking lot. "Oh my God," I said. "Did they find her?" "Yes, but too late," she replied. "Whoever took her had raped and murdered her. They found her this morning, up in the cemetery. He had tried to dispose of her body in a bonfire." I froze. My brain was going a mile a minute, the realization slowly creeping up. That was what that smell was. Needless to say, I never hung out at that cemetery at night again. I think back to our decision to leave instead of investigating the fire. That one decision could have changed everything. Dark silhouette in the bonfire. Let's not meet. So yesterday, I was at my sister's house with my mom, watching my son and nephews play in the yard. One of my nephews, Harrison, was picking bark off of a tree when I remember an old encounter I had as a kid. I said, "So weird," out loud, thinking about that encounter. My mom inquired what I was talking about, so I told her. When I was a kid, I was hanging out at Pinecone Forest, which was what the neighborhood kids called a small patch of trees on the side of the road. I was picking bark off one of them to try and pass some time waiting for my friend Frankie to finish his homework and come out and play. Out of nowhere, it seemed, a guy came up to me. I could smell him before I saw him. He smelled like stale cigarette smoke. I was kind of scared when I looked at him. He wasn't very old, but he had a very lazy eye that was cloudy, and his teeth and fingernails were stained yellow. My mom taught me to be nice to people even when they don't look like me, so I faked a smile and said hello. "What are you doing?" he asked me. The smell of his breath was the worst. I'm picking the bark off of this tree." "You shouldn't do that. It's like picking off the tree's skin. How would you feel if someone picked off your skin?" he said while lightly pinching my arm with his sharp yellow nails. "I don't know," I replied and took my arm back. Just then, Frankie's mom called for me out the door and told me to come and wait inside. I didn't think anything of the whole thing at the time. When I told my mom about it, she had this look of, I don't know, guilt maybe. She said it's probably time that I know the whole story. She thought I forgot about the whole encounter, so she never brought it up to me. First, you should know that neighborhood I grew up in was a small, tight-knit community. Everybody knew everyone, and there was no reason for an outsider to come unless they knew someone there. Anyways, here's what happened with this guy. Frankie's mom, Sonia, noticed a white van with no windows parked on the side of the road. How cliche, right? She didn't recognize it, but figured it was maybe a visitor for a neighbor. Sonia said, or rather, told the police, that the van had been there all morning and afternoon. She was kind of keeping an eye on it. She said she just had a bad feeling. Her house had a huge window in front facing the pinecone forest, and the van was parked next to it. She saw me waiting for Frankie and kept a constant eye on the van while holding the phone just in case. She saw the man exit the back of the van and walk up to me. As soon as she saw him grab my arm and pinch me, she called the cops. That was when she called me into her house. The cops stopped the guy just outside of my neighborhood. In the back of his vans were binoculars, a Polaroid camera, and pictures of me taped all over the walls and ceiling. Me at school, at my grandparents' house, and at the bank with my mom. Just me, everywhere I went. But that's not all. He had a key to a storage unit on him. Inside the unit, they found a cabinet full of knives. A lot of knives. Paring knives, a butcher cleaver, a thin fillet knife, a melon baller, and just various knives of all shapes and sizes. There was also a few anatomy books, obstetrical equipment, duct tape, and 10 empty 5-gallon buckets. In the middle of the unit was an old bed that was used to restrain mental patients, so it had wrist and ankle straps, and the entire inside of the unit was covered in plastic wrap. My mom said he was in a high-security mental institution for the criminally insane last time she heard.